Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. My name is Amy, and if you're new here, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. I am going to be talking about the mass shootings today. I think it's really important that we cover a lot of what is going on in the media, but also what is worth talking about that the media is not covering enough of. And this is episode 35 of the Earthy Amy Show. So if you're new here, welcome. Like I said, consider subscribing if this is something that you're interested in really being part of this family and this conversation that I'm trying to get people to have. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And let's go ahead and get started. All right, so like last time, I'm going to give another disclaimer. I am going to be fanning myself because it is relatively hot in here. The lighting is just very bright. So excuse me for looking a little moist, a little sweaty. But there are a few things that I would like to cover today because one, I think it's important, and there's so many factors to this conversation that I think we're forgetting to have. And one of them that I feel like is really important that I'm also going to give you guys some discretion about, I'm going to be reading the manifesto that the Walmart shooter wrote minutes before he actually went inside and massacred so many people. And I'm going to be giving you guys a little rundown on giving you guys basic information on each shooting that we had this past weekend, because they were only 13 hours apart, which is the craziest thing about, both incidents. So I just want to start off with talking about the Daytona, Ohio shooter. It happened in Ohio. I'm going to say names here. And some people have reached out to me because I've decided to open this conversation to you guys also and ask questions and talk about how you feel about certain issues related to this. And one person expressed that maybe it's not good to talk about this issue, which I'll discuss in a little bit. But he's actually the second one. His name is Connor Betts, and on Sunday morning, August 4th at 1:05 a.m., he started shooting at people in a very populated part of Ohio in Dayton. And basically, what he did was, go around, and it was very sudden. You can see in a lot of the footage that is online now. You can Google it, and you can find it on YouTube, on the news stations. You can see that people are just walking around having what feels like a normal, Saturday or Sunday morning. Early morning, everyone's out in the bars. No one's really prepared for this situation, and neither would I be, honestly. And he starts shooting at the people on the street. And so 9 people were killed from the shooter. He killed, including his sister, who we're not sure. At the moment, it seems like they're not sure if it was intentional or it happened to be that she was there. But what they do know is that he did end up going out with them that night with his sister. His sister was part of the group and a few other people, I believe. And at some point, he left and then came back and started massacring people. So they've also said that it's probably not a race. There's no race to factor in this situation, unlike the other shooter who was very targeted. He was specifically targeting a group of people. And also, they end up realizing that he had a kill list and also a rape list that he created, I believe, in high school. The rape list was created in high school. I'm not sure if the kill list was also at that time. And a lot of people who knew him said that he was a very strange person, and definitely said some really weird things. And what's interesting is that, they said that he had 250 bullets, and he had also another weapon in his car, and he had a bulletproof vest also with the headphones on to prevent any of that noise or to keep the noise out. So he was very clearly very prepared for this situation. The fact that he had a bulletproof vest shows that he was, he at some point realized that something could happen to him, and maybe that's what he initially was looking for either way. So that's a little bit on the Ohio shooter. And like I said, this was only 13 hours apart. So the first incident was in El Paso, Texas. And this was they are finally deciding to call this an act of domestic terrorism. And the U.S. Attorney, Tom Bash, said that. And so the fact that they are labeling it as domestic terrorism is really important, because language is super crucial. As much as people don't believe that it is, or that people can just say whatever they want, it's not true. We have to be so careful with our language and the way that we portray ourselves, but also the way that we communicate and have discussions about issues, especially when it comes to domestic terrorism. As we've seen in other mass shootings, a lot of the people who happen to be white males are considered mentally ill, or they're given some other BS excuse and not being recognized for what they are, which is domestic terrorists. So I'm very thankful that they are going to be, taking the case as a domestic terrorism case. And then this person ended up murdering 22 people. And I think on Monday, the 22nd person passed away. And it's a really sad situation to even talk about. It's very upsetting, because I feel like we as a country have seen this happen for too long now. Too many people's lives have been lost. And so one of the very interesting things about this guy is that he actually drove 11 hours from where he, I believe, resides, and he was from Allen, Texas. So he drove about 11 hours, and then actually went inside the Walmart to eat. And that's where they believe he started to scope out the area, and then decided to go ahead and choose that as his target. And so he ended up telling, I believe, the authorities that, he went to El Paso with the purpose of killing as many Mexicans as possible. And El Paso is also in a state of an emergency. And it's interesting because they've also mentioned that it's supposed to be one of the safest places in the country. And in one day, it was just completely, it turned upside down. Everyone's world just turned upside down, especially El Paso. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the manifesto published before the shooting, which I also think is very interesting, because it just continues to show that he did this for a reason and had purpose and it had meaning. So it's not like it was something that he just randomly woke up one day. Like, he was inspired by someone and by something to do this act of violence, to continue and actually act out this violent this massacre. And as you guys can hear, I'm kind of at a loss for words, because it's hard to even describe what it is, but this is a massacre of people, and it's targeted especially from the El Paso shooter. What's interesting also too that I want to mention really quickly is that the Daytona, Ohio shooter is not getting as much coverage as the El Paso shooter, which is, I think, also very interesting. I think they should be, they should go hand in hand, because they only happen 13 hours apart. So now we're gonna go into this manifesto, and like I said, I have the information here, and I've written a few things on the sheet that I want you guys to, some notes that I made, and I think that this will be helpful in creating this conversation. So I want this to be hopefully, useful to you guys. So this was published on August 3rd, which is the Saturday. And the title is called The Inconvenient Truth. So he ends up breaking this up into several parts, which I also think is very disturbing, because it shows you that if they were to label this as someone who was mentally unstable, I would call BS immediately, because this person knew what they were doing. They had the intelligence. They knew what they were writing about. As I was reading this myself, I realized how intelligent this guy is. And I think that it's a scapegoat to say, they are mentally ill. And as soon as somebody else who has a different skin color does something that is similar that we've seen, they are considered terrorists. And that's why I was so pleased to hear that they are labeling it as domestic terrorism, as they should, because that's what it is. And he was self-radicalized. Almost. And I'm going to say almost, because in a lot of ways, I don't think he was. He was inspired more than anything. And I think that's very clear to make. There should be a distinction. He was inspired by someone. And we're gonna talk about this. because the media has covered this and has said, that he was inspired and radicalized. And the president has also made in his statement that he was radicalized, which I don't believe is true. I think we're gonna get into this really quickly, but I honestly think that he says, and quote, the president says, internet radicalizes disturbed minds. And you know what? I can agree with that. And I agree with that not because the internet radicalizes him. It's because who is on the internet that radicalizes him. And who was on the internet? Who was constantly tweeting out to people, to the masses, claiming all of these false statements and creating fear around certain groups of people, creating this hatred that is perpetuated in every way possible through his language, through the words that he chooses to use. And this man, Donald Trump, is a smart man. Like this, he knows what he's doing. He's creating this fear. That is how he is going to animate his base. And that's what he did. He radicalized this guy. It's not that he found a forum on 8chan and was like, oh, I'm gonna do this. But then again, I don't know. But I honestly believe that Trump is the one who radicalized him. He is a dangerous person. His language is dangerous. It is important that we call it out for what it is and understand that this is not just, one person and maybe many of his supporters. There are a lot of people who believe in the same rhetoric that the Walmart shooter believes in. And I'm going to read this to you because, like I said, it's not like he didn't know what he was talking about. He knew very clearly what he was talking about. He thought this out. It was well thought. It's a well thought out piece. It is really well thought out. And I think it's really important that we talk about this in depth because it's important that we do. And so I'm going to go ahead and read this. So there's, like I said, it's called The Inconvenient Truth, and it says, about me. In general, I support the Christchurch shooter and his manifesto, which I believe is 22 pages long. I could be wrong. I'm going to correct it and put it somewhere down here and correct myself. This attack is a response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas. And right there, I'm going to stop it and say, where have we heard the word invasion? I was just listening to it before I started doing this episode. My mom was listening to Trump say at one of his rallies, the caravan is an invasion. This is so bad. And that's what I mean, that this guy was not radicalized by the internet. He was radicalized by Trump because Trump is a radicalized person himself. I'm going to say that right now because I don't think a lot of people have the guts to say it. And I really do think that he is like this. They both clearly share the same ideas. And that's why it's so important that we call out the language that Trump uses for what it is, because if we don't, then we are going to allow that this same thing continue to happen and for people to believe in the president. So it says, they are the instigators, not me. I am simply defending my country from a culture and ethic replacement brought on by an invasion. I'm going to stop right there too, because I have two things that I need to show you guys that I got in DC when I went to DC. And it's two images. It's two postcards. Okay. And these two postcards, one of them says landing of Columbus. In October 12, 1492, Christopher Columbus landed on the island of San Salvador, the first landfall of his search for a westward route from Europe to China and Japan. This is an image, guys, of an invasion. Okay? This is an invasion. The Europeans invaded this land here, the land that we sit on today. That is what they invaded. And now people, white Europeans, have the audacity to start talking about how other people invaded their land. I am never going to stop saying this. And never in my life, and I will never apologize for this, but if white Europeans have such audacity to say that other people need to leave this land, then they should be willing to get up as well and leave, because they do not belong here. Brown and black people have been stolen from their lands. In modern times, have people immigrated? Yes, of course. But in the beginning of all of this, we were stolen from our lands. We were taken from where we belonged and used as slaves for white European men. And what is this one? So this one says, Discovery of the Mississippi by DeSoto, by Henry William Powell, 1853. Rotunda. Spanish conquistador and explorer Hernando de Soto, who arrived at the Mississippi River in May 1541, led the first European expedition documented to have seen it. As we see here, another form of an invasion. This is nothing that is new. And this is part of another conversation that we need to also be having within our own cultures and within our own, groups, especially in our Black and brown communities. Because it's really important that when we think about history, we realize that it's not just white people. It's not just white people, but this idea of having this hierarchy that we have created based on color. The closer that you are to white, the better that you are, the more successful that you will be. That is a notion that we continue to perpetuate in Black and brown communities. And I will say that, and I'm not afraid to say it because you and I both understand that that is true. It is true. And it is not just white people, but that mindset, that mentality, that conquistador, that invasive mentality is perpetuated throughout all countries. It is not just unique. It has become something that many different societies have unfortunately embraced because they have been brainwashed to believe that having lighter skin is important. So I just wanted to show you guys these because I think this is important. This is crucial. This right here shows proof of who invaded who. This is proof right here. This is an invasion. This is a true invasion. So I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. But this, my friends, is a true invasion of who invaded who. Don't forget it. Seriously, don't forget it. And then he continues to go on and says, some people will think this statement is hypocritical because of the nearly complete ethnic and cultural destruction brought to the Native Americans by our European ancestors, but this just reinforces my point. And this is when I started to realize that this guy is not dumb. This is not somebody who's not intelligent. He knows what he's talking about. The natives didn't take the invasion of Europeans seriously, and now what's left is just a shadow of what was. Let's read that again. The natives didn't take the invasion of Europeans seriously, and now what's left is just a shadow of what was. So what he's saying is that we did not, and the people who were here before us did not take white Europeans seriously, didn't take their motive seriously of exterminating them and their culture and who they are, their identity, and taking matters into their own hands. So it seems to me that he's saying that because they weren't taken seriously, now it's his turn, as well as other people's turn, the people who he was inspired by, to continue this massacre of elimination, this elimination of a certain type of person, because they believe that he believes from this statement that his European ancestors were starting something that never was finished. And what we see here today is simply a run-on on what was left over. We are the leftovers, essentially, which is ridiculous. My motives for this attack are not at all personal. Actually, the Hispanic community was not my target before I read The Great Replacement. This manifesto will cover the political and economic reasons behind the attack, my gear, my expectations of what responses will generate, and my personal motivations and thoughts. And that's it for the About Me. It's like a freaking book. Then we have political reasons. And this is where it gets interesting too, because like I said, this guy is very smart. He's not dumb. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. And in a lot of weird ways, I would agree with some of the things he has to say. And I'll tell you which ones, because I don't agree with what he did. Absolutely not. This is disgusting. What he did is awful. And what he was inspired by is awful. And it makes me angry. So he says, in short, America is rotting from the inside out. And peaceful means to stop this seem to be nearly impossible. The inconvenient truth is that our leaders, both Democrat and Republican, have been failing us for decades. They are either complacent or involved in one of the biggest betrayals of the American public in our history. So that part in itself, I do agree. Both Democrat and Republican have been failing us for decades. They have been. They work for corporations. They work for the people who have money. They are bought out. They are career politicians who have seemed to forgotten why they are there, to serve the people and not themselves and their personal interests. But then he says, they are either complacent or involved in one of the biggest betrayals of the American public in our history, the takeover of the United States government by unchecked corporations. I could write a 10-page essay on all the damage these corporations have caused, but here is what is important. Due to the health of the baby boomers, the increasingly anti-immigrant rhetoric of the right, and the ever-increasing Hispanic population, America will soon become a one-party state. And that's interesting because that also brings up this conversation of, should we have more than two parties? I mean, we do, but we only have two major parties, right? And in some way, I can understand why he would feel that way. We are trying to unseat the Senate. There are movements that are trying to make everything Democratic. I mean, Democrat in both the House and the Senate. And then he says the Democrat Party will own America and they know it. They have already begun the transition by pandering heavily to the Hispanic voting bloc in the first Democratic debate. They intend to use open borders, free healthcare for illegals, citizenship, and more to enact a political coup by importing and then legalizing millions of new voters. That's interesting how he says importing and then legalizing millions of new voters. This is like, he thinks this is like some conspiracy or something, because we're not importing people anymore. People come here are fleeing their home countries because of what we have done in those countries, which is also part of the conversation of why are people even coming here in the first place? We are not also having that conversation. Why are people deciding to leave? And that's because we have gone to a lot of these Latin American countries, destroyed their countries, destabilized their societies, their economy, and are creating this unstable place for them to live in, which forces them to leave and pursue a better life in this country that has always sold this idea that we have every opportunity available and we can do whatever we want, and we can do a lot. We can grow here. We can have families here. We have sold this idea to so many people, which is why so many people decide to come here. It's not just people from Latin America. It might be easier because that continent is closer to us. It doesn't mean that there aren't other people who are coming from other places too. Let's get it together. With policies like these, the Hispanic support for Democrats will likely become nearly unanimous in the future. The heavy Hispanic population in Texas will make us a Democrat stronghold. Losing Texas and a few other states with heavy Hispanic population to the Democrats is all it would take for them to win nearly every presidential election. He's also forgetting that a lot of Hispanic people, Latino people, have actually a lot of conservative ideas. You know, some people, I've met some people, we've seen Latino Trump supporters. Latinos for Trump. I have friends who are Trump supporters. And it's because they have conservative ideas, or they think something is amazing about Donald Trump, which I can't even understand that. And that's for a whole nother episode as well, because that in itself is really just, it boggles my mind so much. But he goes on to say that although the Republican Party is also terrible, he's true. Both have been bad for a long time. Have not worked for the people, but for corporations, as he stated. Many factions within the Republican Party are pro-corruption. True. Pro-corruptions. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. But some factions within the Republican Party. Oh, wow. I'm sorry, everyone. Many factions within the Republican Party are pro-corporation. Pro-corporation equals pro-immigration. But some factions within the Republican Party don't prioritize corporations over our future. So the Democrats are nearly unanimous with their support of immigration, while the Republicans are divided over it. At least with Republicans, the process of mass immigration and citizenship can be greatly reduced. You can see that he has a fear of brown people, because that's what this is. This is a fear of there being more brown people, more Latinos than there is white people. There is this fear. And honestly, I believe that that is a fear that carries within a lot of Trump supporters. The ones who are really out there, the ones who are really... That is the fear. That the fear of what was and what created America, the white identity, the white face of America, it will be gone. So that's it. And that's part of economic reasons. Actually, no, I don't think so. I think this is still economic. No, now we're going to go into economic reasons. That was political reasons, and now this is economic reasons. So he says, in short, immigration can only be detrimental to the future of America. Continued immigration will make one of the biggest issues of our time, automation, so much worse. And I said here, how does that make sense? So then I continued to read, and this is what he said. He said, some sources say that in under 2 decades, half of American jobs will be lost to it, which is true. The future is all about technology. That's really who's taking your jobs, guys. My fellow white Americans, white European, Caucasian colleagues. Of course, some people will be retrained, but most will not. So it makes no sense to keep on letting millions of illegal or legal immigrants flood into the United States, and to keep the tens of millions that are already here. Invaders who have close to the highest birth rate of all ethnicities in America. This is wild. This is really wild. Just this language is insane. Invaders, like we're not people. Brown people are not people. We are an infestation to the people who believe in the way that he believes, including the president. He has said it in his tweets. There is an infestation. Like we are cockroaches, like we are some sort of disease. And it's disgusting. This language is actually disgusting. America will have to initiate a basic universal income, which is interesting because one of the presidential candidates, Andrew Yang, is talking about UBI. So I thought that was very interesting that he mentioned that, which also just continues to show that this guy knows what he's talking about. America will have to initiate a basic universal income to prevent widespread poverty and civil unrest as people lose their jobs. Joblessness in itself is a source of civil unrest. The less dependence on a government welfare system, the better. Which also plenty of white European Americans depend on. So let's not get it twisted. The lower the employment rate, the better. Achieving ambitious social projects like universal healthcare and UBI would become far more likely to succeed if tens of millions of dependents are removed. Even though new migrants do the dirty work, their kids typically don't. But neither do American citizens. Neither do white European citizens. I don't understand this part, because I really don't. Like, he's acting like white Americans don't do the same thing. They want to live the American dream, which is why they get college degrees and fill higher paying skilled jobs. This is why corporations lobby for even more illegal immigration, even after decades of it happening. They need to keep replenishing the low skilled labor pool. Even as migrant children flood skilled jobs, corporations make this worse by lobbying for even more work visas to be issued for skilled foreign workers to come here. It's interesting too, because we have to mention, I really do have to mention that a lot of white Americans would probably not do these jobs. And I believe he says that somewhere down the line as well. But white Americans would not do these jobs. There's a reason why certain groups of people do these jobs. It's because they cannot afford to be picky. They come here sometimes with debt already being owed to somebody else, and they need to pay it off. Or maybe they're looking for a place to stay. They have a family to feed. They cannot afford to be picky and choosy and decide what nice job they're going to get. Whatever job that they can get that is going to pay them and help them survive is the job that they're going to give, even if it's the worst type of job possible. And what do many Americans want to do? Probably not those jobs. Quite frankly, I don't even know if I would want to do that job. And that's coming from an honest perspective. But if I was in a dire situation where I did not have that choice and that privilege to even consider what job I could get, then I would take that job. I would not question it. I would not say, oh, it's, I have to work in the dirt. I don't want to do that. I have to work in the hot sun, long hours, maybe with like 10, 12-hour pay if I get lucky for 12 hours a day. These people are doing, my people are doing the job that white Americans do not want to do, and many Americans do not want to do. So let us not forget that either. Even as migrant children flood skilled jobs, corporations make this worse by lobbying for even more work visas to be issued for skilled workers, foreign workers to come here. Recently, the Senate under a Republican administration has greatly increased the number of foreign workers that will take American jobs. Remember that both Democrats and Republicans support immigration and work visas. Corporations need to keep replenishing the labor pool for both skilled and unskilled jobs to keep wages down. So, automation is a good thing as it will eliminate the need for new migrants to fill unskilled jobs. Jobs that Americans can't survive on anyway. So it's okay that Americans can't survive on it, but it's another problem. It doesn't mean as much that people who look like me can't survive on them. Interesting. Automation can and would replace millions of low-skilled jobs if immigrants were deported. This source of corporations for skilled labor from immigrants and visa holders around the world had made a very difficult situation even worse for natives as they compete in skilled job market. So who is natives too? Because I need to know, like, who is natives? Is he talking about natives like of this land, or his pretend natives, his ancestors? This source of competition for skilled labor from immigrants and visa holders around the world has made a very difficult situation even worse for natives as they compete in the skilled job market. To compete, people have to get better credentials by spending more time in college. He's right. It used to be that a high school degree was worth something. Now, a bachelor's degree is what's recommended to be competitive in the job market. The cost of college degrees has exploded as their value has plummeted. And this is all true. This has led a generation of indebted, overqualified students filling menial, low-paying, and unfulfilling jobs. Of course, these migrants and their children have contributed to the problem. How? But are not the sole cause of it. I don't even think that's true. That's not even true. How can they be the sole contribution to the problem? No. The American lifestyle affords our citizens an incredible quality of life. Yeah, a comfortable one. However, our lifestyle is destroying the environment of our country. The decimation of the environment is creating a massive burden for future generations. This is a fact. He is right. I'm not saying that I'm okay with what he did, but it is very clear from his language that he knows what he's talking about. He's not dumb. He just took all of this on a whole nother level and was like, okay, now all of these problems are related back to brown people and people who come from a different country, immigrants. But honestly, anyone who looks like they could even be an immigrant. Corporations are heeding the destruction of our environment by shamelessly over-harvesting resources, exploitation. This has been a problem for decades. For example, this phenomenon is brilliantly portrayed in the decades-old classic, The Lorax. Watersheds around the country, especially in agricultural areas, are being depleted. Fresh water is being polluted from farming and oil drilling corporations. Consumer culture is creating thousands of tons of unnecessary plastic waste and electronic waste, and recycling to help slow this down is almost non-existent. Urban sprawl creates insufficient cities, which unnecessarily destroys millions of acres of land. We even use God God knows, oh, we even use God knows how many trees worth of paper towels just to wipe water off our hands. He's not right. I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, I hate to admit it, but he's not wrong. Everything I have seen and heard in my short life has led me to believe that the average American isn't willing to change their lifestyle. I wouldn't disagree. Even if the changes only cause a slight inconvenience, our American lifestyle is so comfortable that he's right. We would not be willing to create these slight inconveniences because this is just the culture in our society here in America has bred this kind of mentality. It's true. The government is willing to tackle these issues beyond empty promises since they are owned by corporations. Corporations that also like immigration because more people means a bigger market for their products. And this is where he ties in how immigrations and immigrants are the problem, because the more that they can have, the bigger that the market will be for their products. And I wouldn't say it's just immigrants. I think it's people in general. We've created, and we've seen this in the way that we sell products. It really is all about the way that we sell things, you know? It's a mind game. And if we can convince people to buy, to continue perpetuating this idea of need, then it'll always work out for them. You know, that's what they want from us, to just continue buying, being consumers. That's their goal. So he says, I just want to say that I love the people of this country. But goddamn, most of y'all are just too stubborn to change your lifestyle. So the next logical step is to decrease the number of people in America using resources. If we can get rid of enough people, then our world life can be more sustainable. And I want you to know that the rest of what I'm going to read is something that I haven't read yet. So this is all going to be new as I'm reading this. This is all information that is new to me as well. And every comment that I'm going to be making is based off of, you know, on the fly talking points. So he basically wants to be stubborn. He wants people to continue their lifestyle. They just need to get rid of all of the immigrants because they're the sole reason why this is happening, which is BS. That's like saying the rest of the world doesn't also contribute to these problems. It is not just an American problem. This is a global problem. This is something that us as Americans have decided to implement in other countries, right? We want people to use the American dollar. We want people to be investing, and we want everyone to be using their money for our own gain. And that's just a universal thing. That's not just unique to America. So he starts talking about his guns here. I believe it says main gun, AK-47, WASR-10. I realized pretty quickly that this isn't a great choice since it's the civilian version of the AK-47. It's not designed to shoot rounds quickly, so it overheats massively after about 100 shots fired in quick succession. I'll have to use a heat-resistant glove to get around this. 8M3 bullet. This bullet, unlike pretty much any other 7.62 by 39 bullet, actually fragments like a pistol hollow point when shot out of an AK-47 at the cost of penetration. Penetration is still reasonable, but not nearly as high as a normal AK-47 bullet. The AK-47 is definitely a bad choice without this bullet design and may still be with it. Other gun, if I get one quote, he puts quotations over that. AR-15, pretty much any variation of this gun doesn't heat up nearly as fast as the AK-47. The round of this gun isn't designed to fragment, but instead tumbles into a target, causing lethal wounding. This gun is probably better, but I want to explore different options. The AR-15 is probably the best gun for military applications, but this isn't a military application. This will be a test of which is more lethal, either its fragmentation or tumbling. I didn't spend much time at all preparing for this attack. Maybe a month, probably less. That's not enough time. That's more than enough. That's 31 days. I have to do this before I lose my nerve. I figured that an under-prepared attack and a manifesto is better than no attack and no manifesto. The fact that he describes these guns in such detail And maybe it's because I don't know a lot about guns. Maybe it's because I myself do not have knowledge on guns and the way that they work. But it scares me that he just turned 21 and he knows this much about guns. It shows that this is something I want to cover later on, but I think it's important to mention now that we do not have the restrictions that we need to prevent people who are not mentally stable. We need thorough background checks. We need more, because this is scary. The fact that he can really talk about these guns is scary. I think our culture is very pro-gun, and I can't even imagine in the South what that is like. I can't even begin to imagine, and I'm so grateful that I live in New York. But honestly, after these incidents, I realized that fear that I think other people are having is something that I am feeling now too, as well. And this just reinforced that feeling. So his reaction, this part says reaction. Statistically, millions of migrants have returned to their home countries to reunite with the family they lost contact with when they moved to America. This guy is acting like... Statistically, millions of migrants have returned to their home countries to reunite with the family they lost contact with when they moved to America. They come here as economic migrants, not for asylum reasons. And also, I want to make a quick comment also. He is generalizing why people come here. It's very clear to me that he hasn't had a conversation with, or hasn't had many conversations with people who actually immigrate here, because a lot of people end up going back because they realize that it's just too hard to live here. I've met people myself who have decided to go back because they believe that it's just not worth it after it's just not the way that it's been portrayed to them, and so they've decided to just leave and go back, and they feel like it's probably best for them to do that. So I just wanted to say that. And so it says, this is an encouraging sign that the Hispanic population is willing to return to their home countries if given the right incentive. An incentive that myself and many other patriotic Americans will provide. What does that mean? What incentive? Is shooting people the incentive? This will remove the threat of the Hispanic voting bloc, which will make up for the loss of millions of baby boomers. This will also make the elites that run corporations realize that it's not in their interest to continue pissing off Americans. Corporate America doesn't need to be destroyed, but just shown that they are on the wrong side of history. I can agree with that, but I can't agree that, it's clear that he wants all of America to be Republican as well. And maybe not even that, because it's clear to me that he also has an issue with Republicans, but it's clear that he's looking for one type of mentality to run the country. And it's not to say that, I think Democrats can be different. I think that we've seen that change. I think people just need the faith in their government to do the right thing and to not be bought out by corporations and companies. So he says, corporate America doesn't need to be destroyed, but just shown that they are on the wrong side of history. If they don't bend, they will break. Then he goes on to another section called personal reasons and thoughts. My whole life I have been preparing for a future that currently doesn't exist. The job of my dreams will likely be automated. Hispanics will take control of the local and state government of my beloved Texas, changing policy to better suit their needs. So our needs aren't important? Like our brown and black people needs are not important, is what he's saying. It's only important for the people who are white Americans. They will turn Texas into an instrument of a political coup, which will hasten the destruction of our country. The environment is getting worse by the year. If you take nothing else from this document, remember this: inaction is a choice. I can no longer bear the shame of inaction, knowing that our founding fathers have endowed me with the rights needed to save our country from the brink of destruction. Our European comrades don't have the gun rights needed to repel the millions of invaders that plague their country. They have no choice but to sit by and watch their countries burn. America can only be destroyed from the inside out. If our country falls, it will be the fault of traitors. This is why I see my actions as faultless. Because this isn't an act of imperialism, but an act of preservation. America is full of hypocrites who will blast my actions as the sole result of racism and hatred of other countries, despite the extensive evidence of all the problems these invaders cause and will cause. People who are hypocrites because they support imperialistic wars that have caused the loss of tens of thousands of American lives and untold numbers of civilian lives. The argument that mass murder is okay when it is a state-sanctioned is absurd. Our government has killed a whole lot more people for a whole lot less. Even if other non-immigrant targets would have a greater impact, I can't bring myself to kill my fellow Americans. Like I said, this paragraph that I just read continues to show me that he does not see brown people as Americans. And that could have been me as well, right? Like, I could have been in that Walmart and he would have shot me too, because to him, I just fit under that category. There is no way that you can tell someone is undocumented or someone is not, someone is an immigrant. Even the Americans that seem hell-bent on destroying our country. So he says, I can't bring myself to kill my fellow Americans, even the Americans that seem hell-bent on destroying our country. So what is he not destroying the country either? If anything, he made this worse. It's interesting because let's play with this idea, right? That immigrants are taking over the country, are invading and creating this new, different country that is no longer in favor of his ideas. If anything, he made it worse. He just created a worse situation than I think what he was intending to do. Because what he did, which is scary and awful and heinous, brought sympathy to the people of El Paso, not the other way around. Even if they are shameless race mixers, wow, even if they are shameless race mixers, massive polluters, haters of our collective values, etc., one day they will see error of their ways, either when American patriots fail to reform our country and it collapses, or when we save it. But they will see the error of their ways, I promise y'all that. I am against race mixing because it destroys genetic diversity and creates identity problems. And this is why I'm saying that this guy has one idea of what America should look like, and that idea is white. It should only look white because that is what America is. Yet he forgets that the true invaders of this country are his people. I am against race mixing because it destroys genetic diversity and creates identity problems. Also because it's completely unnecessary and selfish. Second and third generation Hispanics form interracial unions at much higher rates than average. This guy is acting like white European Americans aren't also interested in mingling with those who do not look like themselves. Cultural and racial diversity is largely temporary. Cultural diversity diminishes as stronger and or more appealing cultures overtake weaker and more undesirable ones. Racial diversity will disappear as either race mixing or genocide will take place. But the idea of deporting or murdering all non-white Americans is horrific. What? But the idea of deporting or murdering all non-white Americans is horrific. Okay, let's roll with this. Let's see where it goes. Many have been here at least as long as the whites and have done as much to build our country. The best solution to this for now would be to divide America into a confederacy of territories with at least one territory for each race, self-determination within their respective territories. My death is likely inevitable. That's too bad. You're still alive. If I'm not killed by the police, then I'll probably be gunned down by one of the invaders. Capture in this case, if far worse than dying, I guess he said is far worse than dying during the shooting because I'll get the death penalty anyway. Worse still is that I would live knowing that my family despises me. This is why I'm not going to surrender if I run out of ammo. If I'm captured, it will be because I was subdued somehow. Remember, it is not cowardly to pick low-hanging fruit, aka don't attack heavily guarded areas to fulfill your super soldier COD fantasy. Attack low security targets. Even though you might outgun a security guard or policeman, they likely beat you in armor, training, and numbers. Do not throw away your life on an unnecessarily dangerous target. If a target seems too hot, live to fight another day. My ideology has not changed for several years. My opinions on automation, immigration, and the rest predate Trump and his campaign for president. I put things this. That's what it says. I put ting this because some people will blame the president or certain presidential candidates for the attack. This is not the case. I know that the media will probably call me a white supremacist anyway and blame Trump's rhetoric. The media is infamous for fake news. Their reaction to this attack will likely just confirm that. Many people think that the fight for America is already lost. They couldn't be more wrong. This is just the beginning of a fight for America and Europe. I am honored to head the fight to reclaim my country from destruction. And that is it for the manifesto. And all I can say is he's completely wrong. He's completely wrong in this fight that he claims of taking back his country like it was taken over and infested by people. It is the opposite way around. I think we are in the beginning stages of taking back a country that was based at some point or try to do the right thing. And I think it's hard to resonate with this idea, right? Because I think in a lot of ways, the country hasn't done that. And I think that's part of why there's such a need for a political revolution, because there is so much that has not changed since the founding fathers created America, since there was the independence of the country that also ruled us, right? And I think it's important that we understand. I think it's important that we realize that there is a political revolution and it is happening, and it's scaring a lot of people. It's scaring people like him. And it is very clear to me that it scares him. And I'm sure it scares a lot of people, especially Trump supporters. And he says, that people are going to think that this is because of Trump. And even if he admits that it's not because of Trump, there is no denying that Trump has created this conversation and this rhetoric around eliminating people, whether that means deporting them or finding ways, incentives to prevent them from coming and to go back to their countries. He is trying to make it seem like that Trump has nothing to do with it, and Trump has everything to do with it. In a lot of ways, he doesn't. I think that this is something that America has always had. It's not something that is new or something that we should be too shocked about. This is something that has always existed in America. This is what America is in a lot of ways. This is America's real history of trying to eliminate certain groups of people because they are not deemed worthy enough to live amongst the white Europeans. And I think it's important that we understand that very, very well. And I think Trump is just a vehicle to help people propel their ideas that they have always had and propel them forward and to feel more confident in doing so. Would this guy maybe 4-6 years ago had the same courage that he has today? because a lot of his writing, as many people in the media have stated, is very similar to Trump's rhetoric, and is similar, like invasion, fake news. It's all very similar and very to the T of what Trump has said. So I think it's really important that we talk about that. Trump is actually supposed to be going to El Paso tomorrow. Tomorrow, my friends, he is supposed to be going, whether you see this today, which is the day before, today is August 6th. Tomorrow he will be going to El Paso, which he also thought was in Toledo. Which I think is very insensitive and shows that he does not really care about what has happened here. And his whole little speech that he gave and his condolences, listen, that was not genuine. You can see it. It is just so like, you can see that it was written in script and he was just reading it from a prompt. And it's funny because Uruguay also said, caution people, don't travel to the United States because there's a lot of mass shootings there. People are scared of America and they should rightfully be scared. I'm scared. Seeing this and really examining it and taking it all in has created fear for me as well, because I fear for the people who look like me, for my community members, and I fear being in a space with someone who might share these maybe ideas and who at some point might get really ticked off like this guy did and decide to take things into their own hands and do what they would consider an extermination and injustice to America. So, yeah, and I mean, it's also interesting to note that they're saying, Trump said video games are at fault for this, but it's like, we got to look at South Korea and Japan. And they play super violent games, and yet they seem to be doing just fine. It's not like we cannot blame it. We need to really look at this in the face, and which is why I'm saying that this is not genuine from Trump. This is BS. This is just another way for him to also, continue doing what he does. And with that being said, as you guys might see now, my camera died because it didn't die, but now my camera is full. So I cannot, I'm just gonna, before we end this podcast, I'm gonna go ahead and answer some of your questions now, because I think it is important that I do this. So somebody said, I'm going to keep these anonymous because I always have, and I'm going to continue doing so. So one of them says, you ever feel we will get to a point where guns are banned? So I think it's also clear, which I probably should have stated in the beginning of this episode, that I do not think that all guns should be banned. I myself have thought about getting a gun. Is it something that is plausible? Do I want that option more than anything? Yes, I would like to have that option. But I am a sane person, and I would only use that weapon if I really needed to, if I wanted to save my life. That is the only time I would ever use it. I do not believe that we should ban all guns. I think that we should have the option to have one. We just need to have very strict background checks and make sure that we know who is purchasing a gun and what their mental state is like. These things are really important to talk about. But I don't think that we will have. And I think it would be really dangerous to have all guns banned because, it's in the Constitution. It's our right to own a gun. And so I think it would be even more dangerous for us to ban all weapons. I definitely don't think that we need to be carrying around AK-47s like it's not a big deal, because it is. Those weapons, why do we even have them? For what reason? There is a violent culture that is in the United States around guns, and we use them like it's cool. Like, I've seen people post, whoever listens to this, if this is you, you know who you are. I've seen someone post a picture with them holding this huge gun with their dog in the other hand. Why is that even? What is going through someone's mind that makes them believe that this is cool or this is attractive? Because this is not. This is scary. The way that people are handling the situation and thinking of it as a joke is really absurd, and it makes me fearful, because these are the kind of people that you never know. They have that weapon, and they can easily go into a space and commit murder. And this is unsafe. It's just completely unsafe, and it's irresponsible of the government to not do anything about it for a long time. both Democrats and Republicans. Someone else said, do you think there would be more chaos or unity if guns were taken away? So I believe that there would be more chaos if guns were taken away. And I believe that because to a lot of people, the Second Amendment right is really important. The right to bear arms is really important. I think to have the option to own a gun is important. I think we should have that possibility. But like I said, it's about making sure that we're not giving guns to people who are not stable and who are not qualified to own a gun, or, you know, and this is hard too, because then we have to talk about, well, how can we clear people like that? Like, how will we know based on their, you know, their mental stability if they are okay enough to hold a gun? And it's dangerous. I really don't believe that it's possible that we should even have guns available, like the one that he used to be shooting people. Like, that's scary. That is really scary that people are just walking around with that kind of gun. Another person said, but to answer your question, I think there would be more chaos because people are so protective over their weapons that they would not let that happen. I think that it would create more divide. And at this point, we should not be creating more divide. We should be finding solutions that will somehow be, you know, not, it should be a viable solution that should be, that can work. And I'm not saying that the banning of guns is impossible. I don't think it is, but I think that it would be worse if we did that than good. Someone else said, do you believe the current gun laws would have prevented the mass shooting? No, I mean, it clearly didn't. And it hasn't in other situations where we've had mass shootings. We need, and this also goes into kind of what he was talking about in his manifesto, where there is lobbying, and there is lobbying. There's lobbying for the NRA. There is this need to make sure that, and there are career politicians who are bought out by the NRA, who are supported by the NRA. So they need, the fact that they can have their hands in the government like that is crazy. It really is crazy. You know, like I said, the current gun laws didn't stop these people. So you know, how can we say that it could have prevented the mass shooting? We just need reform. We really need that reform, and we need it to happen soon, because this is, you know, it's a scary situation. It's something that we shouldn't be going through at all, and the fact that we even have to go through it is scary in itself. So yeah. So somebody else said, are you going to talk about the second shooter is anti-fascist? How the second shooter is anti-fascist? So actually, I looked this up to see if there was anything on this person, the Ohio shooter, and I did not see anything about anti-fascist, about him being an anti-fascist, which is interesting because we've also seen the Antifa bomber near the near the centers, the detention centers. Who also left like a shorter manifesto that I also happened to read. And I don't think that this person is anti-fascist, because there hasn't been any, I wasn't able to find any information on it, but I can continue to look and see what happens, and you can follow on my Instagram, which by the way has been changed from Earthy Amy to AJ Vele, which is my new Instagram name, just so you guys know. And then, yeah, I don't think I've seen it, but if that is going around, then I think it's also a problem, because it shows that they're trying to blame both sides for this situation. And I think in this particular manifesto, it seems like he's not really on either Democrat or Republican, but it seems like he has more conservative views and Republican views. So it's clear to me that he lost faith in his Republican Party as well, but it's clear to me that he has more conservative views. But I don't, in the Ohio shooter, I didn't see anything about it, so it could just be a spin to get people to also be mad at the left. Someone else said, don't think we should give the shooter more attention because that's what he wants. And yes, I do believe it's hard to, because we don't want to continue giving attention to people who don't deserve the attention and who should not, you know, their name shouldn't even be mentioned, which is why I felt very hesitant to say their name. But at the same time, it's important that we do talk about this, because this is the the outcome of our lack of gun control, and our lack of of reform. And I think it is important that we talk about this situation, because this encompasses many different other conversations that we need to have, which hopefully I did justice in this past hour. I'm so sorry that this video was so long, but I think that there was so much to cover, and I really wanted to talk about the manifesto and kind of dig deep into it, and for you guys to listen to this. So yeah, I don't think we should, but I think we should also, talk about why this happened, because many innocent lives were lost that did not need to be lost. And the fact that nothing has happened yet, and there's been no reform, and Congress is in recess right now, so they're all on vacation. They're talking about coming back, but I personally don't think that we should not talk about it at all either. Somebody else said they're going to think a bigger plan of how to stop when people have no control. I don't get it. Let's see. They're going to think a bigger plan of how to stop when people have no control. I don't get it. I'm not sure I understand this question very well, but I'm assuming that you think they is the government. So you think that they're gonna think a bigger plan of, how to stop what's happening, these mass shootings. And there's no control, which is why I'm also saying that I think it would be dangerous to ban all weapons. We should have the right to bear arms and to hold a gun and to own one. But I don't think that it should be legal to be walking around with your gun, like just no big deal. But I think we should have it. It's a way of protecting ourselves in very scary situations like the one that we had now. But I think it would be very difficult. It's a very complex conversation that would require a whole nother video to also dive into. But that is all the questions that I got for today. Thank you so much to everyone who has stuck through this episode. I really do appreciate it. I know this was longer than usual, but there was so much to cover here that I felt it was necessary to make it longer than I usually is. But thank you so much to everyone who has been here to support what I have been doing, the work that I've been doing. Like I said, I have a new Instagram name, a new handle, and so that is Amy J. Vele, which is my full name. So just so you guys know that is different. I'm still Earthy Amy. This will still be the Earthy Amy show. But besides that, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who has been here for this whole hour. I really do appreciate it. And I cannot wait for you guys to leave me a comment down below and your thoughts on what has happened. What kind of conversation should we be having about these mass shootings? Please let me know what your thoughts are on the incident. I would really love to continue this conversation. And like I said, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, if you guys don't know already, I go live at 10 p.m. So that actually means I'm going to be going live right after I end this. So thank you so much to everyone who has been patient and has stuck it through. I really appreciate it. And I cannot wait to talk to you guys on episode 50. Whoa, 50. That's a little too far, on episode 36. And thank you again, and I will talk to you guys soon.